1, 2, 3, 4. I won't deny it, I'm a Southsider. You don't wanna mess with me. Got the police looking for me. But I'm calm cause I'm smoking that CBD. Said I won't deny it, I'm a Southsider. You don't wanna mess with me. Got the police looking for me. But I'm chilling in the back of the VIP. Said we won't deny it, we are Southsiders. You don't wanna mess with us. Got the police looking for us. But there's nothing that they can do. When you're chilling with the Blessed Life Podcast crew. What's up, what's up, what's good?
Bravo. Has anybody ever beatboxed that?
They've tried and it actually fucked me up on my rhythm, so I just went with it. But y'all could have snapped your fingers or bobbed your head to it.
I was bobbing my head. I was snapping my fingers. I just don't want to admit, that you have a nice beat there because you're a Southsider.
Okay, you don't want to admit that we can do anything right. I'm Brian Tierney. This is the Blessed Life University Podcast, the BLU Podcast for short. Today we're going to be talking about the Mainland Corporation, which is a trucking company. Mm-hmm. Here to talk with me today about that is Lizzette Vargas and her sister Maria, who is the owner?
Yes, co-owner.
Co-owner. Mm-hmm. Who is the other owner?
My husband and my brother.
Husband and brother. It's a family business.
Family business.
Can I get a witness?
Yes.
We're back here, and we left off on you were telling us that your husband in the business, so everybody kind of plays their own part. Your husband is a little rough around the edges with how he words things to people sometimes. Is that me putting it nicely or what?
Yeah, money. He's all about the money, all about the Benjamins.
About the almighty dollar. Cash rules everything around me.
Oh, yeah.
Get the money.
He says cash is king, and anything he does, and he's a very good, he is very good with managing his money. I'm the total opposite.
So you guys complete each other.
See, that's why they're a perfect mix.
Yeah, so I'm the type of person that if, I'm also not altruistic. I'm not, I'm not going to say that I'm the perfect person, but I'm going to give you this perfect fight that we had that will say everything about our relationship is. We make this procession every year. We're Catholics, and the majority of my drivers are Catholics. And
this is for the Lady of Guadalupe?
Yes. So
what is that holiday, or what is that?
So December 12th is the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe.
The feast, yes, and everybody goes to the statue and brings flowers or prays and offers things.
Yeah, and in reality, I do it because the guys are all on the road all the time, and I'm sure most of them, don't make it a point to go to mass on Sundays because what they want to do is just stay home and chill, and disconnect from being on the road. And sometimes some of them leave on Sundays depending on where they're traveling to, and so. Our company, so a lot of the structure of our company, a lot of the decisions that I make with the customers that I have, with the loads that I grab, a lot of it is based off of, okay, can my driver make it home tonight? And before, in the beginning when I first started, I kind of was like, I was young. I was 26 years old. But I consider that young.
That's young for business purposes. People are barely getting out of college at that point. If you're running a business at 26, that's young.
There's a lot of regulation in the trucking industry, a lot of it. And so you're learning the regulations. I knew some of it, but I really didn't, know a lot of it.
And let me ask you this. Mm-hmm. The company was already in place, but you kind of took it over, or you started managing it?
So, no, my uncle had a company, and my brother was managing it. And then we just decided to open up our own. Jose, my husband, was working in construction, and his boss is Irish, and his boss told him, when I told Jose was the one with the money, we were the one with the experience, and I told Jose, hey, we should get our own trucks. And in the beginning, we started with my uncle's company. We had our trucks there, but you make more money when you go on your own. It is more responsibility. And so I took a big pay cut. I was actually not making any money in the beginning. I actually, to this day, I don't pay myself what I should be paying myself because I leave it to the company, but that's okay. I get different perks, but my husband's the one that makes the money. We have two separate companies.
So you, your husband, and
my brother.
Your brother.
Mm-hmm.
Your brother. And how many kids are in the family? It's you two as sisters. Is there another sister?
Four. It's four of us. Mm-hmm.
So there's
my older brother.
Yeah.
Then it's me. Then Lizette, and then my little sister Yesenia.
Okay, and so it's your older brother who is in the business with you.
Yeah.
And
So
he had the know-how through your uncle's business, and you
Yes.
worked for your uncle as well for a while too? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
My uncle was actually one of the first Hispanic trucking companies here in Chicago. He, I was telling my sister the story the other day. My uncle, he came from Mexico, and he had aunts that were Americans, like they were naturalized Americans here because they came here even earlier. And so when he came to work over here, he saw an army sign that they were hiring, and he didn't understand what the army meant.
So
like,
you just joined the army?
he
and
just
not even
joined
fucking knowing?
Because
Thinking it
they
was
had
a
a free
job.
program to get the CDL.
Yeah, so he joined the army without even
He signed up just to get it.
just to get a job. He didn't know what he was getting himself into. So
It's like, hey, it's Monday morning at 9 a.m. We got some army shifts. And he's like, what? I got to do that?
he went
So
in.
did he have to fight in any wars or anything?
No,
or?
he didn't get sent off to war. It was, I think, right before, when my uncle came, it was in the 60s. I think it was right before Vietnam. I don't remember either right before or right after, but he didn't get
Well,
deployed.
if he came in the 60s, Nam would have been still going. It wasn't until the late 60s that Nam ended and going into the 70s.
So yeah, he was here he got here, I think, late 60s, early 70s, maybe even 75, 76.
Okay, yeah.
So yeah, there was no war going on. So they didn't, he didn't get sent off to war. But that's where he learned how to he got his CDL, and then he came to work here in Chicago. And he was one of the first companies that had its own direct clients, and my uncle was a pioneer at it, and
He had a pretty big operation? Or?
so at one point he did, but then
And what's considered big or small in this kind of business? Like, you have a whole yard with like 50 trucks, that's a big operation? Or is it like even 10 or 12 is considered big?
I
or
think
what's
that's
or
small. 10, 12 is small. That's what we have. It's small considering how other companies, they have 100, 200. Now,
But I think longevity has a lot to do with it too, right? Maddie?
longevity,
Because they have been able to survive. My sister's business have been able to survive because we have other family members that also got into this business and now they sold out.
it's hard. The thing is that you have to, with trucking industry, like everything else, you have to know where the good money's at. And so luckily, in the trucking industry, we live in one of the best areas to be at for what we do, which is flatbed. It's the open deck. I don't know if you've ever seen.
Yeah, so you see like steel being hauled on that,
Yes.
and rolls of stuff, and they
Yes.
chain it down to the thing. Okay.
So that's what we do. We do flatbeds. And here in Chicago, because of the Great Lakes, the St. Lawrence Canal, the Mississippi River, that all connects us to being kind of like the middle point to the country. And so there's a lot of industry.
Everything passes through the Midwest.
Yes. You'd be surprised. We have ports.
Or almost everything. A lot
Yeah,
of stuff.
Indiana ports, the Chicago ports, So there's a lot of business here, and it's paid very well. Now, when brokers started getting involved, kind of like brokers like...
Hi, you need somebody to haul some stuff? I know people who haul some stuff. I'm going to charge a fee. I'm going to be making some money, and then I give the work to this person who does it for me, and they get a fraction of what I get.
So in a sense, it was good for the industry because when you were out in places where you normally don't operate, you have the brokers to help you, bring back. And so then you have more revenue. The problem with the brokers is they have to take a cut. And so, you as a company, you get less money, or your drivers get less money because they have to take that cut when you normally can, establish a relationship with shippers, receivers, and you get that cut. And what's been happening is that the brokers, they're competing against each other, so they start lowering and lowering and lowering, how much. And so some guys are sitting here working just to pay their insurance bill, or sitting here and working. And so eventually they have to close down because they don't have enough money to keep their truck in operational. According to, we're very regulated. So the minute that you get stopped by the cops, they inspect your truck. And if it's not under regulation, they make you stop until you get it fixed. They give you a fine. They don't let you move. You have to fix, and getting your truck fixed in the middle of the road is very expensive, That's how one way that we've been successful is that my husband is a mechanic. So he will literally, we got it down to a science where we won't travel. I would say 90% of our business is within the 300, 400 mile radius of Chicago because he can drive, he can go 5 hours and pick up a truck that's messed up and fix it either there, or he has this like fork where he can get another truck to go get it and bring it back and he'll fix it here. Something that they'll charge $10,000 for on a road, like a turbo. It's a turbo, like I don't know what it does, but it costs like $10,000 on the road. He'll spend like $1,500 here to fix it, and so his expertise in that, and we've saved money on that end. The other thing is I took the decision of not going to places that are further than 500 miles, because I find that my drivers are home more often, so the wives are happier, more often. They're not away from their kids. They're not away too much time away from their kids. Really, the only driver right now that I have, just so happens to be my brother, because he still drives a truck. He's the only one far away from his family because they live in Texas. But he made that choice. He loves Texas and, being out there. So he decided that he would have his family out there. And essentially when I made the decision, because before we used to go to Texas a lot, we had a client in Del Rio where my sister lives. All their manufacturing was done in the Mexican side. And so they would take... Mexican companies would take our trailers, load them in Mexico because the company would, like you said earlier, the cost of production is cheaper over there. So they would assemble all the parts. It was for Carrier 1. They would assemble all the parts out there. They would load the equipment to our trailers. They would bring them back to the American side, and then we would go all over the country to make the deliveries. And the turnover for our drivers was very high at the time. I was losing...
Go over the road across the country.
Yeah, over the road. Yeah, because, the guys get tired they get homesick, health-wise. They're eating all this junk out of it. The junk offered on the road is crazy. I would,
Truck driving is one of the worst combinations of eating bad and living bad as well, because...
Yeah.
I hear truck drivers get hemorrhoids, and they also, you ever notice you look at a truck driver, like a guy at a truck stop, and they have like this big gut, this like spare belly, because they're not exercising, they're sitting there in one position, their testosterone levels are probably low, they're fucking eating all this shit, they're getting ready to fucking have a heart attack because they're not moving enough. Apparently, like if you don't take a break from driving, like every hour and a half, that's bad for your blood pressure. You're not supposed to sit stagnant. That's why a lot of office workers have these problems as well. They get blood pressure issues because they're not getting up and moving and circulating their blood enough.
So that's another thing that I consciously made a decision. My husband's a truck driver, and just like you described, he's a typical truck driver with a big belly. But with us, because we're flatbeds, we have to tarp. So anything that requires protection from the elements, you have to tarp it, so that they spend an hour and a half, depending on how good they are, out tarping there, tarping it, putting it on and taking it off. And so the closer you are to Chicago, the more exercise you have to be doing, because you're doing it more often to compensate for being on the road.
Yeah, you're not on the road, but you're doing a lot of work here.
And so you're being a little more physical with your job. So generally speaking, flatbed drivers, they're a little more fit than the van guys or the reefer guys. Even... It's just...
You say reefer?
Those are the ones that are refrigerated.
No. Oh, reefer. Yeah.
The refrigerated units.
Well, then what do you just call like a regular trailer? Like
van. So the enclosed ones are vans. Those are dry vans.
Well, no, but I mean like a 18-wheeler semi, just like a trailer truck. What do they refer to those as?
Like so the semi trucks. Like
everybody from roadway to Estes or whoever you want to. Yeah, they just are hauling like goods in the back of a thing with the doors. Like
that's a dry van.
Dry van.
Those are the dry vans.
They call that dry van, even though it's not a van. That's a fucking trailer that's hooked to a semi. Those are
called
like
dry
50
vans.
Feet long. They call them dry van.
Dry vans. Those are dry vans.
Dry vans. Dry vans. Reefers.
Those are the refrigerated.
Like shipping McDonald's shit around with frozen.
Anything that needs to be temperature controlled.
And the containers.
And then the open bed.
Then the flatbed. Then you have your step decks, which specialize in machineries. They're a little lower to the ground, so you can because
they're like wide load, giant payload, fucking half a house or a big Caterpillar thing.
So because of bridges.
And those are called what?
So then there's different ones. So you got the step deck, then you have the low boys.
Step deck and low boys.
The low boys are literally to the ground. Because of
the height clearance.
Yes, the height clearance.
Shit.
Then you have the RGNs, which then you start getting into my uncle, the one that had the brain cancer that I told you about, he actually did a lot of specialized. He worked for Barnhart, which is they have rigs. They have their own rigging company. And so I don't know if you've ever seen those trucks that have like, it's just a tire, but it's like 20 axles of tires because they move the long stuff. Like, you know, the wings for the windmills, that one wing is like 80 feet long.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they would move, they would special, and that's paid even better, right? Because, you know, on one load you're getting paid like $20,000, you know, for special. But then, you know, this one load's gonna take you sometimes all week to get from point A to point B. But, you know, you have to learn how to maneuver the little axles, because it's literally little machines that you have on your truck to get them to, when you're turn the proper way. You know, you have to know when to turn because you have this long trailer behind you, you know, 80 feet long, this wing. So there's different, within the trucking industry, you have the containers that haul, those are enclosed as well. I don't know if you've ever seen them.
Containers, like they take it off of
From
the
the train.
railroad and they put it onto a truck.
So then we have family who work for intermodal, the facility, who basically they're within train tracks. They build their facility
Right there, so they could just unload from trains to the truck.
Yes, I believe right here.
Yeah, I'm sure they got it.
Uh-huh.
Bedford Park.
Yeah, so the train arrives there. They're in charge of removing the material inside the container and storing it. And so then you have either dry vans or us, flatbeds, go and pick up, depending on what the advantage of the flatbed is that you can, so not everybody has docks. Any shipper or receiver, not everybody has those docks that you see.
Yeah, where you connect it and they just load it right into the inside.
Uh-huh. So then ours, you can come from the side of the trailer. It's way easier to get it
It's
offloaded.
open space. You just get it up
Yep.
on a forklift or something.
On a skid, yep, exactly. The unload times, that's the advantage also of a flatbed versus dry vans, containers, and actually containers is hard because you spend so much time in the rail yards, and that's the biggest downfall. That
It's a lot of lost time, and
exactly,
you're sitting there waiting
and some
for
guys,
whatever time they can get the shit.
you could be there
to you.
stuck for hours. And we have experience with rail yards because sometimes flatbeds carry empty containers. Indianapolis, that's something sometimes that very rarely now. I pick and choose what I'm going to grab, and I already know that rail yards can take forever. So I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to make him go through all that. Again, because I don't want them to waste their time in work. I want them to get loaded, come home, and go home, spend time with their family. And then, so sometimes some guys, they're like, hey, man, but I came back empty. Yeah, you came back empty. I'm sorry. You know, I'll try to make it up. We charge enough to get out of Chicago for the round trip, you know, versus other people, they're charging. So, for example,
They do it on the cheap, but then
they're forced to come back with something.
Yeah, they have to have something. Yeah,
And us, I charge for that reason. But the main reason is because I want them to come back home. Hopefully, I can get them back home every day. Because of the regulation now with their logbooks, they call them the ELD, electronic login device. They only have 11 hours of driving, 14 on duty, 10 hours, sorry. And so they have to make their trip to go back, you know, go wherever they're going and come back. Plus, you know, the time it takes for them to tarp, you know, to check in. Some places they don't, you know, you don't arrive and they just load you and offload you right away. Sometimes you have to wait because there's other trucks, you know, waiting to get offloaded, or something happened with the cranes, you know, are down. Some places they're just mean. You'd be surprised. These guys.
You'll wait till we're ready.
Yeah, they're union, and it's a lot of times it's the union places where, you know, they can only do things certain ways, and so it takes longer.
Because there's work rules.
And I'm sure there's a reason why the rules. I always tell my kids, you know, the rules were made for a reason because some at some point happened. And so, you know, they take a little longer. But I got it down to, you know what, we're only going to operate in this area because I want my guys to be happy with what they're doing. I want them to, you know, if they can have a family, they want to raise a family. You know, the cost of living right now is very expensive. Trucking, you don't need a college degree to be a truck driver. All you got to do is, you know, get your license, make sure that your license is clean. And even if it's not clean, my husband had like 7 DUIs and he had to pay a lot of money, you know, had to pay even within our insurance because his history. You know, he's
7 DUIs is a lot. Usually they remove your license after
this
like
is before
3.
this is before it got. This is years ago. 3 of them were convictions. The other ones, he had a really good attorney to get him off. But yeah, he's been through it. He's on our insurance. You have to pay a lot of money. I told him, you're paying for it. We're not, as a company, we're not gonna pay. That was your mistake. You're gonna pay for it. And so, you know, now that I hear him talk about his experiences, like I said, he used to be a drug dealer. He tells all the guys, a lot of our guys, they're ex-felons, you know, and so he tells them, look, every time he talks to them, now we hire, most of the guys that we hire are guys that are brand new, that have never driven a truck. And so we train them. And I remember when I used to work for Chili's in Texas. And I had a really good manager. He had a really good team.
I'm so hungry.
His name was Steve. He told us one time, he's like, you know, it's easier for me to hire somebody who's never been a server before because I can train them to how I want them to be versus somebody who already comes
They got an idea of how they want to do it, or they take
their
stuff from other
opinions.
places.
Yes. And so, and that was he was a very good manager. And so then I remembered that, and I was like, man, he's right. And so for the last 5-6 years, we've hired, most of the hires we've had are guys that have never worked in the industry before. And a lot of them just so happen to be, you know, ex-felons. And fresh.
Did you seek those people out, or do they come to you, or how do you find each other?
Just, you know, by conversations. And now that...
Like somebody's looking for a job. And
Yeah,
say, okay,
nobody wants to get them hired. The yard that we're at, where we park our semi-trucks, it's kind of like a communal yard where different people, it's not just us. And so, you know, everybody will...
So you have to pay rent or something?
Yeah, so you have to, so you rent the guys rent the yards or whatever. So then you have all these people talking to each other. And my husband, how do I say this politically correct? He's not, you know, he's not a proper person. He's very ghetto. So a lot of people at the yard, you know, they open up to him. He's a very friendly guy.
He's very raw.
And so a lot of people don't shy away from talking to him and asking him, hey, bro, you know, like, my friend, my guy, he just got out of jail. I got him to get his license. And so that's how we've gotten a lot of them, through people at the yard that know somebody that just got out of jail.
But I think it also has to do primarily by his own example. Because my brother-in-law, his work ethic, I respect my brother-in-law. He's a hard worker. Mm-hmm. And so I think that has a lot to do with his ability, his success also. Mm-hmm. And, you know, and the fact that he is a felon, right?
Mm-hmm. And in jail, that's where he learned his work ethic, and his Irish boss. His Irish boss, he's like his hero, and his father, my husband's father, you know, my husband always talks about how his father, who came from Mexico with nothing, you know, earning minimum wage, and the full circle moment, his father worked for Ryerson, which is now
Ryerson Steel.
Yeah, they're our number one customer. We haul for them directly without using brokers, and that's a very hard thing to get into. Working with somebody that big, I could think if they're not the biggest, they're one of the biggest here in the United States, steel producers. And so his father used to work for them, and we didn't get them as a client through him. We got them, you know, through our hard work. All of a sudden, they just out of nowhere they called us, and we were like, wow, you know. But
so they approached you first.
Yes, I've never.
And is it because they saw what you were doing, or they just needed people to haul?
So big companies.
And they were just calling everybody like, we need this shit moved.
Well, big companies like Ryerson, they themselves have big clients, and so, you know, I've always had a great team. I've done a very good job, I think, in, you know, rooting out the bad apples. The guys that were, you know. In the beginning, I would give a lot of these guys a chance. The drivers, you know, some of them, they were, you know, they just didn't cut it. And in the beginning, I would try to, you know, give them a chance. But then you have to sit back and think, okay, these guys are gonna ruin it for the other guys. If I don't get rid of this guy, that's when my maturity, you know, like I had to decide, you know what, this guy's ruining the name for the company. And, you know, I need to, because in the beginning, some of them were family. And so I had to, you know, I'm a big core family value person. It was very hard for me to fire family, you know, because, you know, you feel bad. You have that.
Well, it's tough with family because, you know, when you let somebody go, you try to do it in a way where there's as little hurt feelings as possible. But unfortunately, when you're letting somebody go, that's the thing where there's always going to be hurt feelings. Now you've done it to family, and it's almost like a cancellation in some way. It's
Yeah,
like,
it is.
You let me go, and now you're not working here anymore. But we're
Oh,
still
they think
family.
they're better than, you know.
So now they're gonna hate you for the rest of your lives,
They
and now
do.
you lost a family member that you would otherwise been close with. Like, what the fuck, man? Life is complicated.
I've had to, you know, a lot of Jose's family too, that I had to let go. But it's like, you know what? I have to think about everybody else here. There are 10, 12 other people, families, and every time I fire somebody, I always tell them that this is nothing personal. I have to feed 12 families, 12 different families. I'm like, I can't let you come and ruin it. Just like I would protect you from another guy, you know, ruining it for us. I have to protect the team. And so I can't let you just, you know. So in the beginning, when this whole felon thing started, at one point I was all like, man, almost like 75% of my guys are all, because there's certain situations as a flatbed, we, like the artillery, the bases, the U.S. Military, they don't allow felons to go in, you know, for us to go pick up. Sometimes we pick up loads out of military bases. The arsenal, like the Smith & Wesson, all those people, Rock Island, the gun maker in Rock Island, we've picked up out of there before.
Rock Island, Illinois?
There's a big weapon facility there. And so Springfield Armory, you know, all those, they definitely do not let, sometimes in military bases you can get away with it, but any artillery places, they
just like a truckload of weapons just driving off, you know, the grid.
They do
like,
background
they don't know,
checks.
yeah, I would be very pleased to know that. Yes.
Yes.
Because you don't want a felon with a truck full of like AR-15s, like just giving them out like Christmas or something, or selling them to people. You know.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of word got out. So you know, I started weeding.
You got
out
a good reputation for your company.
Yes, and so these big companies,
and a good track record of reliability.
Yes.
And low incidences of problems. Because
we're so close, because we operate so close, Jose can go and pick up a truck, send another truck out to make the delivery. So even when we have breakdowns, because they're trucks, they're mechanical trucks, they're gonna break down.
Yeah, mechanical items break down.
Yeah.
They need to be repaired and maintained.
Yeah, and so what the customer cares is, I need my load to get there tomorrow. I don't care what happened, and so we're the people that make it happen, even if, you know, shit hits the fan. And so I think that's what that, you know, that mentality.
Yeah. Oh, you had a breakdown and it still got there before 9 a.m. tomorrow?
Yes.
Wow, that's awesome.
And so we charge a lot. We charge more than other companies do. But the big players like Ryerson, Faralloy in Indiana, like they don't seek me out too often. But when they do, they pay what we ask for. And they're willing to do it without even, you know, arguing with me, because they know that their load is going to get there, whether we have problems or not. And so, you know, the other thing is that I have a very good team of guys, and like I said, you'd be surprised. Right now, today, at this moment, I would say it's like half felons, half college guys with degrees. And it's crazy because, you know, on one end you have guys that, you know, well-spoken, good education, and here they are truck driving. Why? Because, you know, some of these guys make 6 figures and you know, some of these guys make more money than our company does. Now lately the economy hasn't been all that good, so, you know, COVID and all that, but they're still making good money. And so when you're somebody right off of prison and you're already starting to make close to 6 figures, that's a huge opportunity to take advantage of. And so their mentality shifts. I have a couple guys, I don't want to, you know, divulge their business.
No, never mention name or any of that at all.
But the
what
precision,
they do or the type of things that you do in the work is fine.
Yeah,
sure.
The one time, so in the beginning I didn't want to. I'm going to be flat honest with you.
What do you mean hire people?
Hire felons.
Convicts. Yeah.
The only felons I wanted was my brother and my husband, and that's because I had
Your
to.
family.
That's enough.
So it's all right. But,
I was like, that's enough.
well, it's scary. You're taking a risk, and you're highly regulated, so you have to be careful about who you're bringing in to do the work.
And not only that.
You don't want some sociopath who's going to, like, crash a truck and take off with the load or
Or
something.
no, you don't want people
or-
exactly hurting our customers, getting pissed off and hurting, physically getting into fights with them or disrespecting them. Respect is the number one thing I always ask for, and honesty is the second. Please be respectful to everybody. The mechanic at the yard, be respectful to me, be respect to everybody. I will respect you. You have your job as long as you're respectful to the guy that sweeps the floor at the shipper or the receiver, because you never know who you're talking to. And
for me, it's that everybody deserves respect.
Yeah.
We all got to make a living, and that person just happens to be sweeping the floor at the facility,
Yeah.
and you happen to be the one driving, or you happen to be
that's somebody's
this person or
parents.
that person.
And
I mean, it's just I feel like I feel bad when people hold that over other people, that they're in a certain position. It's like they're just doing a job that somebody needs to do it, and they're the ones doing it. Like,
Ashton Kutcher used to sweep floors for I forgot who. I think it was at a some place where they killed cows or something in Iowa. He started doing that.
Yeah, he's like you said, an Iowa or some kind of country boy, Iowa or something like that. It's interesting. People don't really never think that he's from like a farm or something, or a farm rural area.
Yeah, and so I always, and it's very unfortunate. I think Hispanic drivers and women Hispanic, they're even less of a percentage here. I want to say we're about maybe 10 or 15% of the force. And
do you know how rich some chicks are getting from being female truck drivers? Like good-looking ones who like show off on it, like, I'm a female
TikTok,
truck, and I'm hot at Instagram. I saw a chick. I was like, for real, this is a thing? But yes, continue.
Yeah. It's if you know how to play the game, it's a very good business. The thing is that either you go the route of, I'm going to make money no matter what, but you're going to be on the road all the time, or I'm going to be smart about it. It takes time to get customers like Ryerson, so you have to build your reputation. You have to build a team out on the road and in the office, and you have to learn how to work together this whole time. So some of these guys, to get into a fight with their wife, and here they come all pissed off.
At work, it spills over into the workplace.
Yeah, and I always tell them when you go check in to places, you just all of that needs to stay.
Check that shit at the door.
Yeah, and and you'll be surprised how well behaved my ex-felons are versus the college educated guys.
They've learned their lesson.
It's crazy.
Right?
Maybe they don't want to go back to that. Whereas the college educated one, like, I can argue with you because I've been taught all these things in school and all this.
Yes,
stuff.
and I was like, wow, it's crazy. And this one story, I had the procession that I was talking about that we do every year. The first year that this particular guy did it, and I'm not gonna say too much because it's his story to tell, but it was his first year as a truck driver. This was his first job, I believe, when he got out of jail, and he was in there for something big, and he got a job with us, and he was actually the first one that Jose had to convince me, because I was very scared because of what he did, and I was like, no, he's like, hey man, he's like, they're all humans. Then I remembered my dad. I wish my dad would have had the opportunity, of a second chance. I think, our lives would have been totally different. And so then I remember that, and I was like, you know what? Giving somebody a second chance to prove themselves, I should. And that's what, convinced me. And so the first year that he was working with us, he did the pilgrimage. And he went, because what we do is we ride together in a procession, and then we go to Mass. There's a Mass for the drivers that gets held. It's a blessing for them. And then we come back and have our Christmas party right after. So when
this is part of a larger celebration or
yes.
or feast here in
yes, the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe hosts it in Des Plaines.
In Des Plaines, yeah. That's the one I see on the news each year when they.
But we're just one group.
It originally started just with my sister's company, and then word got out, and then other companies.
So now we're up to like 100, 150 trucks.
On top of all the people that just go there.
Right. Our group alone is 100 to 150 trucks every year we go, but it's different companies, not just ours. And so
that's really cool. Very cool ritual.
We'll invite you so you could see. It's pretty cool. So long story short, that driver came back, but he made it a point to stop. His parents hadn't, he was in jail for a good amount of time when he was young, and he was a gangbanger, and his parents really hadn't. I don't think they had asked too much about his job. So he pulled up to his dad's place of business, because his dad was a business owner. And he says that when he got off the truck, his dad saw him and started crying, seeing his son. At this point, I think he had almost a year working with us. And his dad started crying, being proud of his son from where he came from what he had done. And when Jose told me the story that had happened, because obviously, the driver too, I was like, wow, that's very nice to hear that, exactly what I thought about, why I took him in, why I accepted to hire him is exactly what happened. We had a nuclear family not be separated over actions, that person takes because nobody else gives them a chance to, become a better person, give them a chance to be somebody else. Because a lot of these people, they learn their lesson. Or some people just get thrown into the thing again because...
So you mentioned, like, you had Jose, and he knows these people or finds them, or they know about him. And they see the allure of making an honest living, making good money, and then you kind of screen them to see if they'd be a good fit. So they see the allure of it, and that some people have changed after going through that and need a second chance to avoid
getting in
poor life, or just outright going back into jail, doing similar things or worse things than they did the first time. So you provide this opportunity for them to live a good life and make good money and have that second chance and be good to their family and their community.
We have a need for drivers, and what better group of people to hire than people who are wanting to make, something out of themselves. So people look at truck drivers and they're like, meh, it's just a dirty job or whatnot. But it is a career, and it is a career that a lot of people are going into because it makes, if you're smart about it, it makes good money. Now there is sacrifice to it, because you do have to miss some days at home, unless you're a local driver, but you're not going to make the same amount of money being local here than, some like my guys. And, it's one of those jobs where it's nice to see the road. Now it gets lonely. I remember one of my cousins, he used to...
well, I was going to say a good amount of our family is our truck drivers are in the transportation business.
On some shape, whatever. Either they work for shippers, or it's a whole, it's a big industry. And when you go out of Chicago and you go into different places, you get to see a lot of America, like you were saying, like small town America. And some people are very nice, and some people, they will not. They see, my guys are, they look like they belong on the street in Chicago on, 18th Street.
Not to stereotype.
Yeah, not to stereotype, but a lot of...
because they have tattoos and they're...
Yeah, and you would never imagine that.
Some are darker skinned, some are lighter skinned.
And
the fuck are you?
Yeah, and so, they sit here and
I'm here doing my job, man. I'm a truck driver.
And so, some of them get treated, they're racist. I would flat out and say it. Some people in the middle of Iowa, they'll, mistreat them just because they look like a Mexican that belongs in the streets.
Or they don't speak the language.
Or they have an accent to their English, and I've had those conversations with people. I've had conversations.
And then you mentioned the police officers too when they get stopped.
Yeah, so we get stopped all the time in Michigan. I actually don't even go to Michigan anymore because it's a hassle. They will always stop our trucks to check for drugs, always. Because when you, as an officer, a DOT officer, you type in the number, we're required to have our MC, kind of like our social for the company, on our trucks. They type it in, and they can see who the owners are and whatnot, what city they come from, where they're established. So they see Hispanic owners in Chicago. I'm assuming they're, okay, because there's a big drug trade between Chicago and Detroit.
It's not necessarily... It's just that they know that it happens here, so they think because it is, as well as being a freight hub, it's also there are probably a lot of drugs shipped through.
Yeah,
Chicago.
there is
a lot. Maybe more than any other place, maybe.
And so, yeah, and so a lot of it's a for sure thing that my guys are gonna get stopped. They're gonna get searched. They're, you know, and so I always tell my guys.
Well, you have the advantage of you have an open flatbed trailer. It'd be harder to hide stuff for you than it would be for
A van. No,
guy
but they
with a bunch of boxes in a drive-in.
You would think that, but they still stop them. They still make those stops. They still do drug searches because they have to tell you, you know, hey, we're here looking for drugs. And so I always tell my guys, do not argue with them. Just let them look. You know, you better not have anything illegal. You know, let them look. Let them do their job. That's their job. That's what they get paid for. And get on with your day. You know?
Like I remember one example. I was in a relationship with one. How I met my ex through my sister's business, and I was with him in the truck, and they stopped us just because he had. What is that called? What would that be called?
A goat's foot.
And so
like a lucky charm, like a rabbit's foot.
Yeah, but then a lot of drug dealers in Mexico
use that as a sign,
and the cop knew that.
Mm-hmm.
What, that you are part of it, or that you have drugs, or you're carrying or something?
Well, because a lot of drug dealers, you know, they want good luck charm because they're in the illicit business, so they carry those things. Yeah. And
hey,
so
when I load my pistol and I'm getting ready to go kill somebody, like, Lord, it's like, they're like fucking praying and shit, like,
so
blessings.
We were basically there for almost like 5 hours just because this officer was just like, okay, well, and he flat out said that what was the meaning of that, and then he just searched us entirely.
But he knew that from his law enforcement experience that people who have this may be in the drug trade or something like that. But for you guys, it was just a good luck charm or something.
But generally, that's what people.
That's what it is. It's just that it happens.
Just
to be,
so happens that.
Hey, just the cartel uses these too. So if you see a guy driving around with that or whatever, that might be fucking drug related. Yeah. Interesting shit. Yeah. So the cartel has ruined the good luck charm or whatever.
No, but see, the thing is that sometimes they attach the little, what are they called, so that you can whip the horse.
Mm-hmm. It's like a
like a little whip.
Yeah,
thing.
and he had that on there, so it wasn't. He bought it for that purpose, but it was hanging on by the dashboard. So the officer took it as that sign. So because
and the whip thing is for the tires or something, or what is that? What is the whip?
It's for when you're riding horses.
Oh, well, okay. I didn't realize because there's like something for the tires, and don't they have something they hit them with or something, or like there's like some kind of thing that you use with trucking where it's like almost like a billy club or some kind of whip. What is that?
They just hit it to check the tires, make sure they're good.
The pressure,
they're not supposed to be doing that, but that's a quick way of making sure that the tire's not low. Yes, because if it hits and it hits hard, that means the tire's good. But if it hits and you almost hit the rim, that means you need a new tire or you need to put air in your tire. But yeah, that thing that you're talking about, it's to secure down the straps. Or any type of securement thing where you have to...
The cargo.
Ratcheting, locking.
Exactly. It's the thing that goes into the ratchet to...
And they hit the tires with that just to see if it's
just
all.
to make sure that they're...
So for someone looking from the outside in, I want to say that I'm extremely proud of my sister because, like I said, our most of our family has been in this business, in trucking business.
And also, a lot of our family has been drug dealing.
Well, I'm just saying to this point about the transportation business. I want to say that it's nice to be able to see how each family tried to develop like a business plan, right? That you would say that actually worked. And I liked how my sister was able to make it work because it was multiple generations trying to make this transportation business be successful long term.
And she is the one who has made it successful.
Yeah, but I think I do want to say that also you were able to piggyback on like my uncle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So my uncle, he had a very good he didn't have good people skills, but he had a very good work ethic, which is what our family has. And I think that's the leverage he had to be able to stay in the business for such a long time. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to leverage communication skills like my sister has, the ability to understand the value of
family.
Yes.
I think that's what differentiates me from a lot of companies is that, I don't force my guys. The guys will say, hey, I'm taking off tomorrow, because I want to go. I always tell them, hey, can you give me some notice so that I can accommodate everybody? But I never say no to anybody. Whenever somebody wants to take time off, fine, take time off. I understand the need to. Why? Because my brother was a truck driver his whole life. you know, and I remember he would be gone for months sometimes, and I remember I used to miss him a lot. He was a father figure in our house. So there's this one time I remember he was gone for, I want to say 4 months. And when he came, it was during our teenage years. And, you know, women develop all of a sudden sometimes. You know, 1 month you have no boobs and the next month you're a triple D. And so my brother, he came home and he's like, what? He had been a couple months. He's like, what happened to you? You know, so I was developing and my body was developing into a woman body.
Because it happens quick when those hormones start kicking in.
And my brother was like, what happened to you? Like, all of a sudden, you know, I left.
You're like a woman now, basically.
Yeah. And
or somewhere close.
Yeah. And so I understand that. I know the feeling of missing your father or your, you know, family. And it's very nice to see them when they come back and that they made it back safely. And it's a very dangerous job. My brother has crazy stories, you know, on how he almost lost his life several times because it's a dangerous job. The hazards of driving.
Mechanical failures, tire blowouts,
yes.
Weather. You get literally a tornado, throw your fucking truck
Brian,
off the road.
Other people, crazy drivers drive. You should see how these people drive in front of these truck drivers.
Mm-hmm. We have dash cams.
That's a big problem,
There's some crazy footage of people just purposely cutting in front of them.
Braking in front of them.
Yeah, turning right in front of them, doing all this shit. Like, yeah, I get it. And the thing is, like, my dad, Lord rest his soul, like, he would get pissed too, because, like, when we would drive to our vacation destinations, like, sometimes it's only trucks or you're in between a lot of trucks and you can't see around them, and then you're stuck behind them and they travel slower because they're carrying so much weight. They need to be able to stop and they need to be able to turn. So I get it. It is tough because the reasons for which we use the road are different ways, and it frustrates because, like, for your average person, they're just trying to get where they're going, but then the trucks slow them down from doing that. So I get it, and I give truck drivers a lot of props. I saw a guy just the other morning. I was on my way here to the office, and I was the guy was coming, and he was with probably a reefer, as you would call it, going to the grocery store. So he had to, in his grocery store where I worked right here in the neighborhood growing up as a teenager, and he's coming toward me. So there was enough space where all right, I'll slow down, I'll let this man go. And so he made his turn, and I give truck drivers mad skills. It's very hard to get into certain spaces or to reverse into certain places or whatever without crashing that or without hitting something or without damaging something. And this dude, he made his turn and got that trailer to line up so it came straight down the alley without hitting anything, without damaging anything, without going up on the curb, none of that shit. And it takes skills for people. People get used to that, and it is probably really rewarding. Like, I'm doing something that not all other people can, but I imagine it's got to be tough, mentally stressful to deal with the driving conditions that you have here and being a truck driver. And I see a lot of truck drivers doing, like, especially on, like, the major expressways. They'll go a little bit slower and they'll let people in because they know they're going to try to do it anyway. They'd rather give that buffer zone where it's not dangerous for everybody and too stressful on them to, like, even let them in. They're fine, just fucking go ahead. I know you're going to try to do this anyway.
The government is so strict on accidents that it's very hard for you to prove. Like, if somebody, you have that's the reason why I have dash cams. They will blame you, even if it's somebody that got in your way. They will say, well, you're the professional driver. You should know better. You should know that you need to maintain your distance.
You're in a better position to do better because you do that. This is your job.
Yes.
Like, come on.
That you should.
It's responsibility has to be a two-way street.
Yeah, it is. But the guys do get blamed a lot of the times because they're supposed to be professionals. And I always tell them, keep your distance. If you're going to be late, you're going to be late. Oh, well. But the first is safety. I don't want you crashing and, hurting anybody. We've had big accidents. We were actually going through litigation with 2 accidents that was like 4 years ago. And nowadays everybody's trying to sue each other.
Personal injury attorneys love a truck driver or truck accident. I used to work for one. Whatever it is, like, it's...
Luckily,
now you're feeling bad.
Well, but some of them involve interstate trucking issues where it's like it was a truck driver from Wisconsin that causes an accident here, and that's a problem because it's over state lines, and then you're getting sued here even when you're hauling from somewhere else.
Yeah, both accidents that we had were out of state. One of them was in Texas. It was my brother. The thing is, we don't know. Like, I don't want to speak too much on the case, but it looks like the guy took the red light, and my brother had the green light, and my brother T-boned him. That's how it is.
Yeah,
he hit him right in the middle.
Oh yeah, because it forms a T in the shape. Like, you're hitting in the middle, and that's like the top part of the T.
The guy had a lot of brain damage, and so that case happened. And me on my...
Did he have a dash cam when that happened?
we only at the time we only had the electronic logging device. So what the lawyers did is, okay, was my brother on the phone? My brother wasn't on the phone. The guy was on the phone. And so then at that point, you know, we're to the point where they're just trying to settle, you know, for X amount. And, you know, I told the attorney, I was like, you know, it's not fair that, because Texas has some law that they can sue you personally as well. You know, not only the corporation, but they can personally come after you, you know. And I was like, I was like getting ready to close my business because I was like, this lawsuit has been going on for years.
Yeah, they drag out.
And
it's crazy.
And I was like, you know, the minute they see a truck, they're always trying to make it into, because we've had a lot of fender benders and a lot of people trying to, you know, sue because they broke their, you know, back when the driver, like, I literally have pictures of there's this accident that one of my drivers had. You can literally see no physical damage on the truck. And it was a construction zone on the highway. And it was during traffic hours. So if you can imagine, how fast could you possibly be going, let alone the damage. There was no damage on the van. And the guy was sitting here. We won that lawsuit because the guy was sitting here complaining about back pain. And our attorneys were so good that they went through his Facebook. So to your viewers, don't post anything if you're in a lawsuit. They went and he was skydiving. He was doing all these extracurricular activities. And he got caught. So he lost, you know. He got caught with doing all that.
And the attorneys look for that all the time now. The social media is great. They're like, oh, I thought you said you couldn't work. We saw you over here in your strongman competition lifting on the weekend and shit.
No, remember how about that time when one of the drivers said that as soon as the officers arrived, he just threw himself on the floor?
That was it.
Oh my goodness.
That was that instance. So because it was a construction zone.
Neck, my back, my neck and my back. Oh, I'm hurting.
Because it was a construction zone, my driver couldn't just pull in anyway. So you have, you know, the construction zones where they're blocked off. So he had to drive until the construction zone was over.
Like a mile or so.
Yeah, it was actually, rest in peace, that particular driver passed away from COVID. But he had to drive to a spot, so he pulled over. And right when the guy got there, he was arguing with my driver because the guy thought that my driver was trying to leave. And my driver was like, where did you want me to pull over back there, you know? And you can see in the GPS, because now I used to not have dash cams, but now I do. But before I used to have just the GPS, so you can track what they were doing. That's how I know how fast he was. So you provide that to the attorneys and all that. But you could see where he pulled over. And it even tracks when there's construction. The GPSs are, you know, really good. Anyways, so my driver says that as soon as he pulled over, and the guy was arguing with my driver, when the police arrives, then the guy that supposedly my driver hit really bad, then he falls over acting like his back was broken or something and yelling at the cops. But this whole time he was standing arguing with. It's crazy. But yeah, they go through a lot. The guys.
Some people try to game the system.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because the ones who end up losing is us mom and pop shops, because our premium goes up. It's ridiculous what I pay for insurance, and I pay that much because we live in a county where most of the time any lawsuit that happens is for the people and not the truck driver. You literally have to be stopped, parked, and not doing anything, not even in the truck, for you not to get blamed. And even then, sometimes they'll tell you, well, you were not supposed to be parked there, you know.
If you don't, are you able to say on air, are you comfortable saying how much you guys have to pay for insurance?
Yeah.
Is it a yearly cost or what?
So, yeah, so it's...
And what type of insurance is it? What is it?
So you have to have auto liability. You have to have physical for your own, like, you know, your personal cars, bodily injury,
property.
Then you have to have cargo insurance for the cargo that you carry.
In case it gets damaged.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you have to have what we call bobtail insurance. So whenever you're not doing anything that the company sent you to do, our insurance won't cover it. Like if you're, for example, when we have the pilgrimage, that's not considered
work-related activity. You have to have like damage to
special
someone
policy.
Not on a duty, job duty thing. Okay.
That's a special policy that has to be in place. So in between all the policies, for 10 trucks, I pay about almost $300,000 in insurance
per year.
Per year. And, you
Wow.
know, that's a lot.
Yeah, because the nature of the business that you're doing makes it very expensive. Because I had a lawyer tell me in law school, like one of my professors, he's like, oh, you can get like $1 million coverage for general liability for a business for like $1,000 a year. But unless you're in a risky business or a more dangerous business in terms of the potential for accidents.
Actually, general liability, he's right. That's what I pay a year. That's another one that I have.
But yeah, for $1,000 for that or something. But then, what, $300,000? Can you imagine that you have to make $300,000 at least before anybody else gets paid?
Exactly. And that's the hard part of this business. And they don't give
That's
you
why the shit costs so much.
and they don't give you a year to pay it. You have
ship, yeah.
10 months. First of all, you got to come up with a down payment, and then you have 9 or 10 months, depending on what kind of insurance you have, to pay the $300,000. You don't
You don't get the full year. You're not paying 1/12 per year. You're paying like a month and a half at a time. Or,
Yeah. And so, when you have guys taking off for 3 months at a time,
it can hurt because you're not bringing in the money you need to pay the.
So that's where that's where a lot of people.
This shit is an expensive business. You guys got to be charging a lot to ship.
Yeah, we do.
Because the insurance plus the salary payment.
We're in millions when it comes to gross revenue. We hit the millions, but
It makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to. If one of your single costs, not the truck, not the parts, not the maintenance, not the fucking labor. If just the insurance alone is $300,000, you'd have to be making millions of dollars a year in order for this to be profitable.
Yeah.
So
And
to make a living
sometimes,
on it.
like I said, sometimes it isn't, because I'm so lenient with the guys. I'm not forcing them to work, But I know that
I hope they listen to this. They understand all the shit you got to do to make sure that they have that
Exactly.
opportunity.
a lot of
for
them
the job.
don't. A lot of them don't.
And it's no
understand.
disrespect to them. I'm just
Yeah,
saying,
yeah.
listen to
Or
what goes
also,
behind the scenes.
sometimes what happens a lot is they think, based upon what I hear, that it's easy and they want to try to open up their own business without realizing what she goes through, or my
You're like,
brother,
bro, you
the
have
expenses.
no idea.
Uh-huh.
Well, just the regulation, all the applications and permits you have to apply for, probably.
The regulations, when the government comes knocking in your door, you're more than likely gonna pay a fine, because it's hard, especially a little mom and pop, to go exactly how thankfully technology has gotten so good that now if you use technology like the GPS, the ELDs and all that, it'll help you track everything you need to track. That the government requires you to track. And that's good because it keeps the trucks safe on the road, less accidents. I understand regulation. I understand there's a place for it and why they do it. Because before this regulation came into place, we were operating beyond the hours that we should be operating to make money. And so after the regulation, I think President Obama was the one who brought it in.
Like time limits on how much drivers can be on the road per.
Well, the ELD had to be forced on the truck. This electronic monitoring device.
To say how long it's been driven for.
Because before it used to be paper, so paper logs, they're
Yeah.
easy.
I was only doing it 2 hours. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're very easy.
You got all the way there in 2 hours.
Yeah, and before the way that they would try to catch you is, the government would come in, audit you. They would look at where you were going from point A to point B. Sometimes there would be timestamps on the bill of lading, the paperwork that they give you. And so sometimes they would be able to catch you if you were very sloppy. But if you're very good at hiding, nobody would ever.
Meticulous at record keeping. A smooth.
Yeah, so a lot of people wouldn't
know how
get.
to do
And
this.
then some companies are so big, they're so huge that they have the money to pay for the fines. Like Walmart. Walmart's the biggest trucking company. I don't know if you know that.
They're the biggest private owner or fleet in the country.
In the country.
Yeah.
And,
Amazon's probably getting pretty close.
Yeah,
To
at this
catching up with
point.
them or whatever, maybe.
yeah, at this point, yeah. And so there's now those people, they have so much money that you could put a bond for yourself. After a certain amount that you make as a company, you don't have to procure insurance. You can just be your own,
They're like self-insured or self-bonded or whatever.
Yeah, so you go get a bond, and this bond requires them to look at your financials
Make sure you have enough money to cover.
to cover if there's accidents. So then these people are not paying, they're paying the losses, whatever. But they have such good attorneys, that's hard to fight these big time shark attorneys, Walmart and all of them. And so these people, if we're in the millions, now imagine them, like how much money they're making. And then they have the lobbyists. So when the regulation came on, they were saying, a lot of the guys were saying that the ELD regulations, they were saying that it was the big companies because they wanted to get rid of the mom and pops. But I looked at it as, look, yeah, it's going to decrease the volume that we can do, but it's going to raise prices on how much it's going to cost to hire trucks, you know, because in trucking, the small companies, there's more of the small companies than the medium and large, right? And so, sure enough, the minute that the ELD regulation came in, something that used to pay $800, $900 in a 300-mile radius now pays $1,500, $1,600 twice as
It's
much.
almost double.
Yeah, and for less amount of work, you know?
And just if you could tell us, when you say ELD, what does that term mean?
Electronic logging device. So they put it's essentially on the computer of the vehicle, they put this GPS tracking device. And so it's attached to either your phone or a tablet, whatever you want to use. And it's a program that logs when you're driving, when your truck is stopped. And so you can manipulate everything except for the driving. So let's say my driver stopped. Sometimes being stopped, the truck not moving, could mean that he is off duty resting, or he is on duty working, waiting to get loaded or tarping. So
even your downtime counts
Yeah.
as part of the amount of time you're allowed to do it.
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah, you're.
How does that affect people then? They have to stop after a certain amount of time moving.
Yeah. At 14 hours, from the minute that you open your logbook,
Yeah.
you have to check your truck, make sure that it's in working order when you start your day.
The pre-trip inspection.
It's what they call the pre-trip inspection.
You know about this too, as part of the family business. Yeah.
She
Brian,
dated-
there's no other talk about truck driving
Yeah, I hate it.
issues.
I'm getting a view into it now because she talks so fluently and freely about what she does. She's sharing a lot of knowledge. Like, this is fascinating for me. Like, will I ever practically apply this knowledge? No, but I have a much greater understanding of the trucking business by listening.
Yeah, they only have a certain amount of time they can work. 14 hours of being on duty, and then 10 hours of actual driving.
And that makes sense too, because
11.
let's not pretend that just having downtime doesn't make you tired in and of itself. Like, if you're awake longer, even if you're not, like, you don't have to be running a marathon. You're gonna get tired out after a while. You need sleep.
Or when they're
Or
just waiting to get unloaded, like just because
that counts
some
as
spots,
on duty.
Yeah, some spots they get upset if the driver's not like awake, but technically he's not resting, because if he misses the person that's gonna unload him, then do they lose their turn or what happens?
So like when they're waiting to get offloaded.
Yeah, because that would be considered like
that's considered on duty. So let's say you get to a shipper or receiver, and there's a long line, or their crane went down, right? You have two options, and I always tell my guys, I can't force my guys to go past the hours that they're working. And I always tell them, if you go to a place and there's a long line, or if something's majorly wrong with the production line that they can't get you offloaded, you are going to decide you're going to log off and come back the next day, or risk letting your hours finish, and then you're going to have to be forced to get out of line and then rest for 10 hours, because they force you to rest for 10 hours before you can start your shift.
Before your next 14.
So then, but I always tell them, you have to make do you want to stop now, or do you want to risk it, and maybe midway between waiting, then you have to stop anyways and go,
It might be more efficient to stop earlier.
Yeah.
But then that creates a problem, because then they have to go pick up somewhere else or drop off, and right? It affects
because sometimes lately it's been hard because the economy is not doing well, but when they have loads coming back to Chicago, sometimes I do grab them when they're good, when they're paying good, and so I'll schedule these loads prior to them even arriving to offload, and so in hoping that they'll get offloaded within a reasonable amount of time. And sometimes we run into issues where a crane went down, like I said, and they have to wait there for hours.
You might have to send another truck to get the an empty truck just to get it there, because you have a contract for a certain time.
Yeah, if it's a big client, yes, I will send. I'm sorry, you know what? I'm gonna have to send you empty. Sometimes I'll pay out of pocket. I'll say I'm gonna give you this much, but in reality, the customer didn't pay that. I just give them the extra, so get them to. It's not their fault that this is happening, but
It's not yours either, but you're also getting screwed.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
you
we-
make up for it with the prices, right? Or-
Yeah, exactly. That's why you should. That's why you should. Sometimes some brokers, really the brokers are the ones that are like, well, why do you charge them? Some guys don't even believe. Like sometimes I get into arguments with people on the phone because they're like, that's ridiculous. Nobody's making that much. Nobody's paying that. You're lying. And I don't even argue with them anymore. I'm just, you know what? I'm sorry. I don't want to waste your time. I'm not gonna waste my time. I need to take another phone call. Like, they'll argue with me over how much I'm charging, you know, and I don't argue with people anymore.
If
It
you
is
get somebody cheaper, go talk to them.
yeah. That's what I tell them. If you have somebody to cover it for cheaper, you're calling me. You're calling me asking for my truck. This is the price that I'm gonna charge you for it. If you,
It's tremendous. I love when you have that power where you're just like, here it is, bitch. Take it.
Yeah, but what she's leveraging essentially is that interaction that happened. She's willing to pay out of pocket to keep that relationship with that client.
it doesn't happen all the time, but it has. Even with brokers, there's some brokers that I have very good relationship with, and they don't argue with me about our prices because they know that we'll get there. Because I will make those, you know, decisions when I need to. That
The
you know
sacrifices.
What? Yeah, I'll pay out of pocket. I'll send him or her if it's a girl driver. To this point, I haven't had a girl driver. I was almost gonna have one. I was so happy, and then she had kids, and she needed to stay local, only here in Chicago, and we don't do that yet. So, but anyways, yeah.
Do you think the what did you say, ELD?
Mm-hmm. ELD.
Do you think ELD is a good thing overall?
I absolutely do think it is. It raised the prices on us. I as a company get a percentage of what the truck grosses. So the higher the truck grosses, the more money I make. But I also have to think about Jose's expense because Jose is the owner of so Mainland Corp. We have two companies. We have Mainland Corp and we have Mainland XLT. Mainland XLT. This is the reason why I named it Corp, because my future goals, you know, encompass other aspects of the trucking industry. And so what he owns the assets and I just run the logistics of it. We're the logistics company. And so basically I have to, because he's
You're
my
separating
husband.
out things. So you have property and trucks and equipment in one, and then the
logistics
business
company.
logistics part of it. And you see that commonly in the industry that
Some
companies will do
people
that?
do, some people don't. I think it's personal choice on how you want to. I think it's smart to
And
separate.
so why do you do it? What's the efficiency? Is the liability is separated, or that one
Exactly.
one business doesn't affect the other?
Exactly. For liability purposes. Also,
The insurance is probably cheaper for the logistics or something, whatever the case may be,
So,
than it is for the...
yeah, and the other reason why is because Jose, I didn't think it would be fair for us to tap into Jose's profits because he's the one that does all the mechanical work. And so he did the initial investment on purchasing the trucks. And so I was like, you know what? Me and my brother are not going to be out fixing the trucks. So I told Jose, I think it would be a fair thing for you to be the only sole owner of the trucks because you're the one that's going to be out there fixing them. You're the one that invested in them, you know. So that portion of the business.
And then you're on the logistics side, you personally.
Yeah. And so I have zero to do with his, I mean, as a wife.
Do you have an assistant or you do it all yourself?
Yeah. No, I do have somebody that helps me. Jimena. She helps me. And so it's still kind of interrelated because she does a lot of his bookkeeping, you know, for his side. And so, and then, you know, there's a maintenance program that the government requires to have. And so that maintenance program helps him to keep his bookkeeping and keep, you know, to know when his trucks are up for maintenance and all that. So they're kind of interrelated, but that's getting really into the nitty gritty of it. But so we separated ourselves and he owns the trucks. So he sits here and he, I would say when I'm thinking about the loads that I'm gonna grab, I have to think about the company, us Mainland, which is the last one that I usually think about. Is my driver first. I want to make sure that, you know, he's gonna go and come back home. How a lot of the guys in the beginning, when the guys that don't know me when they first start, and a lot of places seniority, the loads are given out by seniority. With me, I don't work that way. I try to keep it everybody gross around the same numbers, unless you want one day off. Well, you're obviously not going to, even those guys, I try to, even if they only worked 4 days, I try to get them to gross the same amount as the rest. Because at one point, one guy is going to need a day off, So my brother, who's owner, even himself, he grosses the same. And so there's a lot of guys, they do get paid differently. They, some of them get, because they have more experience, but the total amount of what they gross for the week, I always try to keep it the same. So before, people would be like, oh, that's her brother, she's going to give him the good loads, the ones that pay the highest per mile, because that's what you want. You want to get paid a load.
Yeah, the most per mile you can
yes,
make.
Yeah. Less driving, more money paid. And so, but I also have to think about Jose, because I can grab a load going to Pella, Iowa, which is where we go to Vermeer. I don't know if you ever heard of the machines, Vermeer Corporation, their machinery for drilling, for farm, out here, the city workers, they have Vermeer. That's probably our biggest. Ryerson has that account. Anyways, so we go for $1,750 to Pella, Iowa, which is 340 miles. From Chicago. Now, right now, brokers for that lane are paying about $1,000 to go to Pella, roughly around the same miles. And so sometimes there's some days where, I can easily grab a load from a broker. Like if for whatever reason Ryerson, because work is slow right now, that we don't get the same volume as we do when it's busy. Let's say, I need to get these guys moving, So I have to think about the driver, how much they've made during the week and past week and month, because there's analytics in the program that we use that shows you that. And so
so technology makes it easier.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So then I can easily
balance workloads and make sure everybody's making about the same or something.
Exactly.
So people are in your company, these employees are making close to the same.
Each driver is getting a chance of making the same amount of money as the next one.
Unless they're taking more time off than the other ones, and it's like, you're just not here. Like, you could make this much. We can offer you this work.
Exactly.
You wanted, and it's understandable. It's trade-offs.
Exactly.
Trade-offs in life. You have to make trade-offs.
Yeah, and so basically, I have to think about the driver, and I have to think about Jose. So if I grab loads that are paying $1,000, it's just, he gets roughly about a quarter of what the truck makes for himself, and then from there he has to pay for the mechanical stuff, and so I could easily make
the mechanical stuff comes out of his quarter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, so yes and no. So it's a quarter to the company, which is us, Mainland Corp. So obviously, whatever profits Mainland Corp makes, he gets a cut of it because he's also owner of Mainland Corp. So that's why sometimes I kind of in the pyramid of when I'm deciding on a load, there's a lot. People think that it's just dispatching the guys, but there's a lot of thinking that goes behind when you book a load, when you grab a load. But the first person on the pyramid is the driver. Then comes, the rest of the team. Can this driver do this load with this amount of time that it has an appointment in the morning? Some of my guys are divorced and they have their kids, that day. And
there's a lot of factors you have to consider. Yeah.
So you have to, and so then, long story short, Jose XLT, Mainland XLT, is kind of in the middle of the pyramid. And so I have to think about him also making money, because if he's not making money, that means he's going to be cutting corners in his trucks. He's got to, make a living. He's got to pay his bills. So if I don't get his trucks to gross a certain amount of money or go, I can't have his MPGs, his miles per gallon, all that, how much he makes per mile. I can't let it go a certain number below, because then what's going to happen is for him to pay for his trucks, what he's going to do, to fix them, he's not going to have enough money to fix them. So then I'm not going to have trucks that are in good working order on the road, and the risk goes up higher, because you could get a blown tire, and if he starts buying cheap tires to cut corners, blown tire will explode in the middle of the highway and hit somebody in the windshield, and it's a teenager driving and they don't know how to handle it, and here goes an accident, we're getting sued, or God forbid somebody passes away, and so you have to always, in everything you do, me as a company, I'm the last one that, comes into play in deciding what kind of work I grab for them. So yeah, there's this, and then you know, me and Lizette were talking about it. You're making all these decisions along with all your personal problems that you have going on, and that's the one thing that I want to get at your audience is that we're all humans and we all have problems at home. Business owners, you know, we have our business and we have to take care, and sometimes we have to put our family problems to the side because you have 12 other families, you know, depending on you. And so sometimes your family, I'm all for family value, and then here I am with my family, you know. But I chose having my own business and working for myself because I get to be home. I get to, you know, I'm the primary caregiver for my mom. She's disabled due to a stroke. And when we came to, my husband wanted to buy a property, and which meant that we would have to move the office to a commercial property. And I was like, you know what? No, not right now. Because my kids are still small at the time when he said that. And then to this day, my son is 12 years old. You know, I get to see my son when I get to see him off to school. I get to see him when he comes home from school. If he needs help with his homework while I'm working, while I'm wrapping up the day, he comes and asks me. Or if he's just there, you know, I get to see him all day, every day.
Yeah, so again, down to the core values of what she feels is important. For example, the opportunity that Triton College offered you.
Oh yeah.
To grow.
So I've gotten so many offers. I've gotten so many different types of offers. You know, Lizette one time told me, "Why don't you become a consultant for the regulation side of?" And it's a good idea.
And the only reason why I say this to my sister is because you hear everything she does, and I kind of feel like she's the one. She's making other people more money, and I feel like, what about her? I feel like as a consultant, she can grow herself and her money and her, and that's the whole purpose of business, right? But again, this is what's important for my sister.
My family, yes.
Her family.
My family is important. So, you know, there's a lot of recently, because of the procession that we do, one of a director at Triton read in the newspapers. It came out in the Tribune, and she read about our company and how the article was geared towards Hispanic truck drivers, you know, and how much truck driving helps families, you know, put kids through college and stuff. And so she read the newspaper and she contacted me, and she said that Triton was looking to partner up with a trucking company, Triton College in Melrose Park.
Yeah, to like help people get their CDLs and start businesses or work for business.
And so my husband was, you know, jumping at the opportunity. You know, Triton College, you know, they're big. They're one of the big small
community
colleges.
Yeah,
community
you have
colleges.
Valley, you have Triton, you have DuPage College. DuPage is a big one.
Yeah, all the city colleges of Chicago. And, you know, here's a huge, you know, a big college player asking little old Mainland to partner up with them.
It's funny, how that works.
Yeah, and all through because of something totally not related to Triton. Well, I mean, I guess it is. She was reading the article because it had to do with the truck drivers. But anyways, when I sat there and I thought about it, my mom, I don't know if Lizette's ever, I'm not going to get into my mom's case too much because it's a long story, but
our lives and our stories are very
similar.
My mom had a couple, they were more minor strokes, they weren't major, but my brother does the primary care, and then I visit there socially to, you know, keep her spirits high as much as I can, because this is a busy business as a lawyer, and there's a lot of people that come to me with their problems I have to solve and do all this stuff for them, do their business for them. But I do different roles, but it's funny that we have these things in common.
And you'd be surprised how many people share the same problems, you know, you just never know. But anyways, so my mom, she has congestive heart failure, and, you know, I'm also a big advocate, you know, it's the irony in life is one of the, you know, being overweight is definitely can get you there to have congestive heart failure. But anyways, she has had so many problems because of it, and she's to the point where her heart is failing her, to the point where she's closer to death than not. And so it was halfway between having our business that she got sick. And it's funny how God plays his cards. You know, I was the one working from home. So in the beginning, I was working from home for my kids. And And I was the only one that had the opportunity to take her in, because everybody else has, you know, job. My brother's a truck driver. And so, you know, how she was a manager. She's a manager at a place over there. So it's hard, you know. So whatever, I was the one, I was like, you know what, I can do it. Not knowing, now that I sit back and I think about all the sacrifices that I've had to make to care for my mom, because I've lost a lot of money in that. But that, to me, again, go back to the same, you know, it doesn't matter. This trying opportunity, I told my husband, he was all excited about it. And I'm very grateful that I have him, because when I tell him, when we speak about it, and he hears my side, he almost always sides with me and says, okay, I understand. Like, you know, I told him, I can't watch my mom and do this project with Triton and it be successful. It's either going to be the project with Triton or it's going to be my mom. I'm like, and I'm going to pick my mom over money, you know, and because it's going to take a lot of time away from me, you know, for it to become successful. And so...
But they were offering you good money for the opportunity?
It was half, yeah. It was half of whatever profit the school... They wanted us to open a trucking school. And so we were going to go halves on everything. But, you know, us being a small company, if we were to decide to open a trucking school, we don't have the opportunities that Triton has in regards to the marketing. You know, they already have all these people going to them without needing to market for them. They already know the know-hows on getting all the grants that the government gives to people to pay for their driving.
Because they basically are the government.
Yeah, exactly.
The curriculum established.
Exactly. They already know how to set up the classes, what's successful.
Do some trucking companies have their own schools to teach people? Yeah.
So you have the big players, like TMC is one of the ones that I can speak on, that has a really good training program. But they make you sign a contract, so you
have to work for them for a certain amount of time.
They'll teach you, or if you want to breach the contract, you have to do this.
Well, that's typically how it works with any type of training, right? In-house, like for nursing.
Yeah, or I think Walgreens will pay for your pharmacy school.
But you have to work for them.
But you have to work for them for a certain amount of time. Or there's probably, like you said, a breach clause where here's what the damages would be if you leave.
Up front.
Probably. I mean, that, or maybe they have some kind of restrictive who you can work for, how long you have to, you know, or how far away you have to work from their current place. With pharmacists, it probably doesn't matter. But some industries, they'll tell you, you can't open up another business just like this within 100 miles of here for another 2 years or something like that. Because they don't want you taking their book of business
clients
away to the other place.
Yeah, so I told Jose, with a lot of other offers, I was like, you know, people have offered me to go work for them. You know, shippers offered me to go run their logistics department, their trucking, because some of these shippers have their own trucks. And so, you know, they'll be like, hey, why don't you come work for us? And, you know, I'm pretty sure probably make more money with them. But I always tell them, you know what, you know, I can't. I have my mom. And until my mom passes away, then maybe I'll consider it. But then I still have my kids, you know, that are with me. So I don't know. I feel like sometimes money isn't always, you know, what's worth. I think, like, every time I have that procession with the guys, that's the one time that we get to spend a lot of time together, because I do, you know, I talk to them all day, every day, but I never actually get to spend time, you know, together that has nothing to, well, that does have to do with work, but I get to talk to them something that's not work.
You're together and connected and doing this activity because you work together, but it's not about work itself. It's about something else.
And what better than, you know, God. And so, in whatever form of God you believe in. Some of them are not even Catholic.
I think most religions are referring to the same one. They just have different names for it.
Yeah.
We're all kind of talking about the same same entity.
And it's also like a form of bonding time. Like all our families come together, their families come together, and we all get to see each other.
So I'll be riding with you guys next year. Just find me a spot.
So because it's gotten so big, in the beginning, you know, I would buy them food and stuff, and before we would meet up, I would get the coffee. Now it's so big that it's a lot of families, because the whole family comes out with the driver to go to mass. And so, I'm the one that funds everything for everybody. Over 90% of the people that go, I don't even know who they are. But I think it's very important
That was Chicago Tribune.
I think it's very important to have at least one day for these guys to celebrate them and have them be together with their family, together with their work family, and pray for them and show them how much they're appreciated. The guys have so much fun when we're driving down.
So no loads are being taken on that day or that.
No.
Everybody's
No.
off
Family
one day.
loads.
That's funny that these big ass corporations gonna have to respect that. Like, sorry, I'm not available this day. Like,
Yeah, well, usually I do it on Saturdays. Because that's when the shrine holds the mass. They have it on a Saturday.
But it's one main time of yours on the 12th of December.
So it's close to the 12th of December. They
Yeah.
usually do it the Saturday before the 12th, whatever that day.
Yeah, whatever that Saturday. Yeah, so it's just that one day.
Yeah.
Do you guys ship during the weekends too? Do you have trucks running right now?
Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I try not to. Again, going back to the family, like the weekends are my time, and I don't want to be stuck. There is work that I can grab, but I don't grab it because I don't want to be having to be
doing the logistics of it on the weekend.
Doing the problems with, hey.
So your drivers are off on the weekends.
On the weekends, most of the time, yes.
Damn. For those who are getting a second chance, like it's like you did something that you had to pay your debt to society for, and now that you've done that, you're getting a chance to live a normal life and a 9 to 5, or not a 9 to 5, but to having the weekend. I complain about the weekend sometimes. I'm like, it's just 2 short days and it flies by, and I don't really get to do the things that I want to do or I need to do for the different quadrants of your life. There is emotional, physical, spiritual, mental, and all these things, and you have to contribute to all of them. And a lot of the times, you neglect them in the duties that you pursue. And you mentioned some stuff earlier, and it made me think of the old Irish saying that my dad would tell me, is that the shoemaker's children are the last one to get their shoes, meaning that you take care of your own business last usually. Even though you do this for a living, it's like your kids are the last ones getting the shoes.
Yeah.
You've been paid by everybody else to do this, so
Yeah.
You got to find that balance in life where your job is not devil worship after a while, because you realize that the devil isn't just selling things off for this imaginary money thing. And a lot of people, or one of my attorney friends had this eloquent way of putting it, a very simple yet eloquent way of, your kids don't need another thing, they need you.
Yeah.
And going into having my baby, I'm going to take that very seriously, my role as a father. I do want to have that balance. I don't want to give up doing things like this because I believe in them. I believe in, and it makes me grow, and it fills my spiritual and emotional cup as well to do this. Like, if you look at the logo, it says always be learning right in the middle as a motto, and it's this is a metaphorical university, right? We're in a place that's not a college, but it's treated like a college campus where you learn and you grow. Yeah. And today you were the professor, and I was the student. So I believe in doing things like this, finding this balance, but too much of the good thing is a bad thing when it comes to work. We work to live, we don't live to work. Yeah. I feel so. Is there anything else that you want people to know about your company, or the business in general?
Not so much the business. I think it's important to us as human beings, whether we own companies or not, to give people a second chance in life, because we don't know, Which is anti-cancel culture, which is a lot of what's going on right now, is giving somebody a second chance. Yeah, because you don't know why, the circumstances behind the decisions that people make, sometimes gets them to do something, but you also don't know. Some circumstances you might be aware of, and others you don't. Other things, you don't know what's going on in their head or, in their life, because some people really don't communicate everything that happens in their life. So some people choose certain routes because of things in their past or things at the time, that happened. They choose this route. And in regards to my guys that found themselves in legal trouble, at the time, a lot of them are Mexican American, first generation Mexican Americans. At the time, their parents didn't understand the culture of what it was to be an American here, and so in many different things, in many different ways, I guess what people should understand in general, and what I've learned through having the business is that giving a second chance to people, no matter what it is important to that person. You don't understand how much you're going to positively affect the life around that person. You know, like the father of my driver who was crying and to this day is super proud. When my driver got out of...
see his son was doing something and making an honest living.
and totally did a 180 from what he was doing. And my driver, he's a very quiet guy. He's very respectful. And when he got out of probation, he just got out of probation not too long ago. He's been with me for like 4 years. When he got out of probation, the day that he got out, he called me and he's like, I want to thank you for giving me the chance, you know, of this opportunity.
And the only thing you ask in return is just for them to do
respect.
well by you.
Yeah, that's it. Just be respectful to everybody and be honest with me with work, because I want to make sure that I can give everybody a fighting chance to survive with a decent wage, to be able to, you know, raise a family here and raise it the right way with family value first. And so, you know, whatever you do is going to affect everybody else in the team. And so any person out there, you give a second chance to people. So we're not the same person we were 5 years ago, 10 years ago.
I agree. I know I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm better to...
Nobody's perfect. I mean, I come from a long line of people that have made mistakes, but, you know, starting from my father, you know, and my father has a story that's amazing. And, you know, I wish that a lot of people would sit here and give him and my brother a second chance for them to change, you know, because even then my brother did the same thing my dad did. He should have known better because he knows how it affected us. You know, at the time he didn't have kids, so it just affected us as the sisters when he got arrested. But he did it for a reason. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. But you know what? Let's move on from it. Let's learn from it. Same thing with, like I said, with my drivers. If I get the chance to, I will keep doing it. Because I think we'll become a better world. And you know, we concentrate on the negativity, the good things, then they themselves will manifest, like you said earlier. If you look at the positive side of things, that's what you're going to get out of it. Instead, if you're concentrating on, I'm just going to get, you know, this guy just because it seems like he's on paper, he seems like he's a good person. But, you know, it's a guy that's always fighting with people and, you know, somebody who doesn't have life experiences. Sometimes those guys that are ex-felons are the ones that have the best life experiences. So I think everybody should give a second chance. That's the one thing that I've learned in my life, that everybody deserves one.
Well, it sounds like you have given people something that is valuable and very rare, almost like a diamond. Is the second chance something that other people won't give them, and it is very, very valuable. You've given us a window into what you do, the people that you work with, and how you learn to do it. It sounds like you did have a good example in your uncle, but also you've gained this college education of logistics and business and cost-benefit analysis of mile, money per mile and all these things. And thank you for sharing it with me today.
Absolutely.
Because this is at the core of what we do. Very interesting to me. It's this mix of human beings and the life, and then also making a living while doing it. Is there anything else that you want to leave with anybody today?
Yeah, I think that's on my end. I hope everybody has a peaceful life. We could have a storm out on our window, but as long as inside of your heart you know that you're at peace, and that's the best feeling, knowing, like that phone call that I got from my driver, knowing that all that sacrifice that you do, you know you did good in the world. Maybe not right away, you won't reap the benefits, but as long as you leave the door at the end of the day knowing that you did something good, I think that's the best feeling in the whole world.
There is honor in labor and accomplishing things in that way and bringing back the bounty to your family. And shout out to all the truckers out there. It's a tough job. Mentally and physically.
It's a hard job.
For many reasons, it takes its toll. There's a lot of sacrifice, and
my hat's off to all of them.
Yeah, we live in a world of instant gratification into it and all the sacrifice. So
Yeah, thank you
no problem. And
for giving a voice to them.
well, you know, and hopefully something for those folks to listen to as well, and maybe, you know, even your drivers or any other drivers that hear this. I was just talking with a truck driver yesterday at a networking event I was at, a very nice young man, and so now it's interesting that this is happening at that time where I was just talking to him about similar things as well, and so you know, for all the people that make that sacrifice out there who deliver these things, the final products that we enjoy, you know, hats off to them, and keep on doing noble things. Kindness is the world's most powerful resource, and we control it.
Yes. Nobody does.
Not the government, not some big corporation. So spread kindness all over and make the world a better place. And tune in to the next episode of the Blessed Life University podcast. We love you, man.
Thank you.
Peace out.
Bye.
A very, very good ending.